See, first of all, EWay bill is required in case of movement of goods before whenever there is a movement of goods, before that movement of goods, so we need to generate an EWay bill and we need to inform it to the department that the goods are being transported from one place to another place and what are the type of goods, who is the consignor, consignee and the vehicle number. All details needs to be reported. As there is no physical check post now and there is only virtual check post, so due to that reason there is no requirement of any physical check post or stoppage of vehicle, etc. That is the advantage of EWay bill. But we need to intimate as to what goods that are being transported, so that whenever department wanted to intercept the vehicle, they can intercept the vehicle and they will check. Section 68. So that's what we have seen in case of search seizure. In that we have seen section 68, interception of the vehicle and checking for the goods and related documents. And this EWay bill is required only when the value of the invoice pertaining to that goods exceeds 50,000 rupees. While counting this 50,000 rupees, we need to include GST also. That is important, remember. Okay, so it is to be generated before movement of goods. Whether EWay bill is required in case of exempted goods? No, EWay bill is not required in case of exempted goods. EWay bill is required only in case of taxable goods. Okay, exempted includes non-taxable goods, and it is not applicable if the value including GST, so with respect to a document, that is invoice, does not exceed 50,000 rupees. But in two cases EWay bill is required even if it does not exceed 50,000 rupees. That is when the goods sent on job work or in case of transportation of handicraft goods. Okay, so in case of job work and in case of handicrafts, even if the value does not exceed 50,000, but EWay bill is compulsorily required. And there are two parts in the EWay bill here. Part A, that contains the basic details about the invoice, description of the goods, etc., consignor, consignee, and part B contains the vehicle details or the transport document reference number. Okay, so part B comprises of transport details, whereas part A comprises of GSTN of the supplier, recipient, document number and reason for transportation. Now there is a validity of the EWay bill. So there is an amendment in this place. So previously the validity was just 100 kilometers. For every 100 kilometers or part thereof it is 1 day. Now they have revised it to 200 kilometers. So which means, suppose if the distance is 480 kilometers, previously the validity was 5 days for every 100 kilometers or part thereof. Now it is taken as 200 kilometers or part thereof. So the validity is only 3 days. Okay. So for every 200 kilometers or part thereof, the validity has been taken as 2 days. For every 200 kilometers or part thereof. So 200 and the next 80. So therefore 3 days will be taken as the validity. And this is in case of other than over-dimensional cargo and multi-mode transportation, where at least one leg of the journey is by way of vessel. Okay. Say for example, up to some distance it is by roadways and thereafter by railways and thereafter by waterways and again by roadways, like that. So there are multi modes of transportation in which at least one leg of the journey involves transportation of goods by waterways. Then it will be 1 day for every 20 kilometers or part thereof is the validity of the EWay bill. If it is a over dimensional cargo, that is the tail of that cargo is so long, then it will be called as over dimensional cargo. Then also 1 day for every 20 kilometers or part thereof. And this is the validity of the EWay bill. And once the EWay bill expires, so that EWay bill needs to be renewed within 8 hours after its expiry by mentioning the reason as to why the goods could not be delivered upon that time, within that valid time. And this extension needs to be done upon expiry of the EWay bill within 8 hours. And when it will expire, always EWay bill validity will be counted from the midnight of that day in which EWay bill is generated till the next day. So for example, if today the EWay bill is generated morning 3 a.m. so today midnight only it will be counted. So somewhere if it is generated at 1 p.m. then also midnight. Suppose if it is generated at 10 p.m. then also midnight. So that day, during that day, at any time when the EWay bill is generated, the validity will be counted from the midnight of that day to the midnight of the next day. So which means the expiry will always be at the midnight. So by 8 a.m. the next day, so the validity needs to be renewed. Okay. Then some FAQs in this regard. When EWay bill is not required, if it is a non-motorized conveyance, so bullock carts, horse carts, manual rickshaws, etc. So EWay bill not required. So goods are transported to or from between, that is inland container depot, container freight station. So inland container depot is a dry port that is wherever there is no port, but if the goods are to be imported by waterways, that is seaways, so in that case they establish a deemed port, dry port by customs, so that is known as inland container depot. Container freight station is a place where stuffing and de-stuffing of the containers will happen. We are unable to hear your voice due to breakage in audio. For everyone, same issue? For everyone, same issue here? Okay, so you check pa, that's not my problem. Okay, so I was referring to inland container depot is dry port, and container freight station. Container freight station is a place where stuffing and de-stuffing of the containers will happen. That is, whenever the goods are being imported, so that will be coming to a port. From port, they will be taking it to a container freight station. They will open the container and segregate the container goods between various importers. That is known as container freight station. Okay, so then from port or airport or land customs station, when goods are imported by waterways, it is port. When goods are imported by airways, it is airport. When the goods are imported by landways, it is land customs station. From that place to ICD or container freight station, the goods will be transported. So that do not require an e-way bill. Same way at the time of export. So from container freight station or inland container depot to port, airport or land customs station, when the goods are taken, that also do not require e-way bill. That is the second point. Third point, goods are transported from the customs port or airport or land customs station to the customs warehouse for deposit of goods without payment of customs duty. So still they are under the control of the customs. So due to that reason, usually these goods will be having a customs one-time lock. So due to that reason, these goods do not require an e-way bill. Okay. Then transit cargo to Nepal and Bhutan. So Nepal and Bhutan are landlocked countries, and from a port in India to Nepal and Bhutan, the goods will be taken through that route. And we have discussed that in exemption, that it is exempted supply. So any services in relation to transit cargo to Nepal and Bhutan is exempted, and here what we are trying to understand is that, so that particular transit cargo which we are taking from a port or airport in India to Nepal and Bhutan do not require an e-way bill. That is this. Then Ministry of Defense. For Ministry of Defense, if we do any movement of goods and then empty cargo containers, suppose if in a truck there are some empty cargo containers, so transportation of that empty cargo containers also do not require e-way bill. Okay. And then container transporting goods to or from between place of business and a weigh bridge for a weighment up to a distance of 20 kilometers. So what is that? So whenever we take the goods in a truck for the purpose of a weigh bridge, so we will take it to first empty truck will go. Anyhow, empty cargo containers do not require e-way bill, and thereafter we will load the goods into the truck and again take it to the weigh bridge to know what is the weight of the lorry with goods, so that they can identify the weight of the goods. So if that weigh bridge is within 20 kilometers, e-way bill is not required. Okay, that is this point. Then goods are transported by rail, where the goods are belonging to central government or state government or local authority, then also e-way bill not required. And goods are specified as exempted from the requirement for e-way bill in the respective states. So state specific conditions also we need to check, and in that case also e-way bill not required. Apart from that, there are some notified goods for which e-way bill is not required. These are general. So LPG, so that too only that red color cylinder which is for domestic consumption or non-commercial people. Okay. So then kerosene oil sold under PDS. So public distribution system, kerosene oil if it is being transported, so that also do not require. Postal baggage, then that is postal mails and baggages, natural or cultured pearls, jewelry, very important, otherwise people can identify the truck, so which is going in which route, and they can steal the gold from there. So that do not require an e-way bill, no need to intimate the details. So jewelry, then goldsmith and silversmith wares. Then next, used personal household effects, that is I am shifting a house, relocating house from one place to another place or one city to another city, that also do not require an e-way bill. So this can be asked as a question, which of the following cases e-way bill is not required? In MCQ it can be asked. Whether e-way bill is required if the movement of goods is for supply, not necessarily it should be for supply, it can be without supply also. So then it will be accompanying a delivery channel. The goods will be accompanying a delivery channel. Also remember, for services, EWay bill is not at all required. For goods only EWay bill is required. Whether 50,000 limit is for taxable goods or exempted goods, only for taxable goods. Suppose if in an invoice there are both taxable goods and exempted goods, how to deal with that? So if in an invoice there are both taxable and exempted goods, in that case we need to take only the value of taxable goods, and that value of the taxable goods, if it is 50,000 rupees, more than 50,000 rupees, so then EWay bill is required. While computing invoice value, whether GST to be included or to be excluded, yes, we need to include GST. While determining the limit of 50,000, definitely we need to include GST here, okay? And then, who will generate EWay bill? Suppose, if there is a registered person who is causing movement of goods, so that registered person, being a supplier, will generate EWay bill. Suppose if the supplier is unregistered and the recipient is registered, then the recipient is causing movement of goods, so recipient will generate EWay bill. Suppose if both supplier is unregistered and recipient is unregistered, then the transporter will generate EWay bill with respect to these goods, because these are taxable goods. So in case of taxable goods, EWay bill needs to be generated. So transporter will generate. Alternatively, supplier and recipient can generate EWay bill by declaring themselves as citizen of India. So with their permanent account number, they can generate the EWay bill. Okay. Then whether transporter is required to generate if the supplier has not generated EWay bill because the value does not exceed 50,000. Yes, even if the value of each consignment does not exceed 50,000, so supplier did not generate EWay bill. But cumulatively all these consignments transported by a transporter exceeds 50,000 rupees, definitely the transporter should generate a EWay bill for all those consignments. Then some other points. Now we have something called as blocking of EWay bill. Blocking of EWay bill is possible whenever, so for two consecutive periods, tax periods, if GSTR 1 or GSTR 3B or CMP 8 not filed by a particular GSTIN, with respect to that GSTIN, consignor or consignee or transporter, anyone cannot generate. So that GSTIN may be belonging to any person. So as a consignor or as a consignee, as a transporter, so that particular GSTIN cannot generate EWay bill, and others also cannot generate EWay bill for the GSTIN. Okay. So for example, if the supplier has not filed two consecutive returns, you may think that the recipient can generate EWay bill. No, because the day when they enter GSTIN of the supplier in that, immediately the error message will show that, so with respect to this GSTIN, EWay bill is blocked. So therefore EWay bill cannot be generated. That is this point. Then in case of bill to ship to transaction, there are actually two supplies. The first supply is between the original supplier and the billing address. The second supply is between the billing address and the shipping address. So even though there are two supplies, but there is need of only one EWay bill. Then multi-vehicle updation. So up to some distance in one vehicle and thereafter another vehicle. In that case, whether we can update the vehicle numbers, how many number of vehicles you want to transport, you can transport. So that multi-vehicle updation is possible in the same EWay bill. No need to generate a new EWay bill. And part B, that is vehicle details, needs to be entered within 72 hours, and it may be, that is 72 hours from the generation of part A, and it may be entered by supplier, recipient or transporter. So this is with respect to EWay bill summary. This much you need to remember. Okay. Any doubt in this here? Any doubt in this? And there is something called as consolidated EWay bill. Consolidated EWay bill is to be generated by a transporter. EWay bill, EWB1 is to be generated with respect to each consignment. EWB2 is a consolidated EWay bill. So summation of all EWay bills will be called as consolidated EWay bill. That is to be generated by the transporter always. Okay. Done.